Welcome to the Football Feast podcast, the go-to podcast for soccer or football players who want to eat, train, and recover like the pros. I'm Craig Evans, a sports nutritionist working with athletes at every level, from rising stars to seasoned pros. Here, we deep dive into how elite players fuel for success, chat with top coaches, chefs, and experts, and bring you real stories from the pitch. Whether you're chasing a contract or just looking for that extra edge, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. All right, so this is episode 15 of the Football Feast. Today's episode, we have James Newbury. James, when we talk about an elite athlete, man, you're one of the first people that come to mind. And just because a lot of people are elite athletes and they're doing a sport, and you got people like Roger Federer, who's like an amazing tennis player. But for me, it seems no matter what you do, you just drive to the goal and you push yourself and you achieve a lot, obviously. So I believe there's so much that people can get out of your story and the advice you can give, especially like young athletes. So yeah, I really want to talk about that today. And yeah, thanks for jumping on.
Mate, my pleasure. This one's been a long time coming. We've been needed to have a chat like this for ages. We go way back. So 2000 and, man, can't even tell you, 2008 or something, or 7? Maybe somewhere in and around there.
Yeah.
It'd be a long time ago, man.
Yeah. I will never forget the first time doing like a training session with you in Anytime Fitness down at Seaford there.
Yep.
And I remember the first thing that you made me do was 100 chin-ups, and I'd never done more than like 10 in a row before that. And you're like, no, we're going for 100. The next 7 days, I was literally T-Rex, like arms locked like this, and I could not break it.
I know the feeling. Yeah, no, hopefully some of those sessions back then have given you some good experiences rather than locked up T-Rex arms. Maybe some life lesson.
Yeah, I think it just opened my eyes to what is capable and how far you can push the body. And that was really early on, so it was a really good experience. Not for those 7 days though.
No. We've all been there. We've all pushed the limit. We've all pushed the limit at some point further than necessary to get the best results. And I'm the first one to say that, I pushed myself sometimes to the point where it's adversely affected progress, but it was more so, can this be done? Is it possible? And sometimes you ride that line, like the fella that just ran across Australia, good. He's just like, is it healthy? No, but is it cool? Yeah. Same thing as 100 pull-ups. It's not necessary to get good at pull-ups, but it's also cool. So there is a fine line there. It's also, I think, again, reestablishing what is normal and what is good and what is capable. Like, what's a myth? What's the myth, and can we debunk it? Have people tried this stuff before? And I guess I've always been of the mindset that I think, like I was just saying to you, if it's not fun and exciting for me, I don't really want to do it. It has to be fun. It has to be exciting. It has to be a thrill. It has to test me, sometimes positively, sometimes in the moment negatively. And I don't think it's really any side of that coin. It's more so just an experience. And if the experience is exciting, I'm into it, which is why the only thing I've really like knuckled down on is multi-sport. And multi-sport gives me such a variance in everything that I can test strength, I can test fitness, test cardiovascular ability, I can test lactic threshold, I can test skills and skill acquisition, and I can put myself in situations that a javelin thrower wouldn't put themselves in swimming 1,500 meters, or a swimmer wouldn't put themselves in if they're going to go lift a strongman Atlas stone, or if a strongman's going to put themselves on a bike and go and bike 180 Ks or whatever it may be. It's just, for me, it's about learning and applying as many different skills, modalities, and testing points. And I like to test those, I guess, that mental fortitude across multi-disciplines, because I think what it takes to run a marathon is very different from then what it takes to lift an Atlas stone or pull a 250 kilo plus deadlift. I think all those challenges require a little bit of something different, even to the point of like playing football, like that requires something different altogether. And I like the variance. I like variety.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like you said, we can look at people's genetics, or they look at like people's body types and sort of work them out and go, right, that person's going to be really good for swimming. Their aerobic capacity, they'll be good for long distance running. But like for you, and that's what I've found is amazing, is you're capable of you're so well-rounded and elite at a lot of them, which is really inspiring. It's really amazing to see.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely required a lot of hours in the gym and on the track and outdoors and having fun. And I think it also requires a mindset that looks and seeks the thrill of the chase. And the thrill of the chase is a project, right? Like, your body's a project, and you have every ability to do what you want with the time that you've got. And for me, that seems like a cool, fun thing to try and do. And why don't we give that a crack? And imagine putting two ends of the spectrum together, something that isn't considered a common crossover, like strength training and endurance training. Why don't you see how good you get at both? I think that's a fun aspect for me. And then you can put it into play and you go chop and change. And if you zoom out to maybe a bigger portion of my career, it's always been fluctuating from bias towards a bit of endurance and then bias towards more strength and then a bit more bias towards multimodality exercises. And at the moment, I'm really knuckling down on running, and I've never done a running block like this one ever. And I'm feeling like I'm getting newbie gains again, and I'm 34 and I'm running faster than I've ever run in my life. So it's fascinating to see what the body is capable of. And again, I love business too, and it's good to push those boundaries. And I love pushing my body to its limits and boundaries and seeing where that's tested. But to do something like endurance running or Hyrox racing, which I'm currently doing, and to see such dramatic changes physically, that fires me up. It brings me back to like teenage years when you're doing your first set of bench press and you go from 37.5 kilos to 40 kilos and you think that's a massive win. Let's go.
Yeah.
Whereas now, instead of running 4-minute Ks, I'm, running 330s or 320s or 315s. It's a fascinating thing watching the body adapt. And I love it. I love it.
Yeah. You just brought me back to a really good memory when I started lifting weights. I reckon we go into the gym every week and I would try and hit like my best 1RM every week.
Yeah. Yeah. And 3 times a week, you do it Monday. Oh, Monday's bench day. Oh yeah, sweet. Wednesday's bench day too. We'll do Friday bench. Sure.
It's so
Yeah, I
fun
know.
looking back.
It's good. But mate, a lot of those sessions, to be honest, it was so good getting all the lads around to throw down. And that taught me a lot about maxing out sets, taught me a lot about who can hang on the longest. And I was always one as the teenager, be like, oh, how far can I last in a beep test? And I'm going to push myself until I can't move my legs anymore. And then I remember squatting with some of the boys in the shed and going, all right, we're going to do a 20 RM back squat. And we're just going to just try and rep it out as heavy as we possibly can. And that was when we were like 15, 16, 17 years old. It's who can hang on the longest for the longest set of back squats. But back in the day, that wasn't normal, right? Like no one wanted to do that stuff, but I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah. I think that goes against that environment, like we were talking about before, but like being around good people that are pushing each other and just that like with the boys kind of mentality and like pushing each other like, oh, you can go further than that. And even like the guy they're a bit better than you and like it's always in your head. You're like, well, I'm going to get you next time.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that was the thrill of the competition. And that's what really drew me to wanting to be competitive down the line and finding other sport that I never even knew about back then. I was doing those 20 RM back squats at 16 years old and I was just playing rugby league at the time, wanting to play professional rugby league. All I wanted to do was play in the NRL. And it wasn't for the fact of, I didn't think it was going to magically make me a better rugby league player, but it was just the thrill of the competition. Who's got the most in them for the set? Who can last the longest? Who can deal with the burn the longest? And that really translated into a lot of the events that I do these days is who's going to suffer the longest. I guarantee I'm going to outlast you. That's the point. I'm going to outlast you. And if you get done, you get done. You tip your hat, say, well done, you got me. But I like that. That's just, that's always been in my nature to enjoy that stuff. And a lot of people are like that too. There are people out there that just love, like my girlfriend, she loves getting the mongrel out. And when it starts to burn, she'll just pushes harder. And a lot of people shy away from pushing harder when things start to get hard. So it's good to see. And that's, I think, what is maybe a foundation layer for being a high level athlete is like when things get tough, like you can hang in there further and you're probably not even at a quarter of your capacity yet.
Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating insight. All right. I might start digging into fueling strategy with you.
Yep.
Okay. So has your sort of fueling strategy changed between sort of Ironman, CrossFit and Hyrox?
Yeah. Maybe not so much in the last few, but I've come full circle a few times actually. I remember back in the day when Dad was prepping me for a little athletics meet, we would be doing some pancakes with maple syrup and we'd be doing, or maybe oats. He would make me a bowl of oats and he'd put some maple in and around that and maybe a bit of brown coconut sugar. And then I did that for a while leading into my events and a bit of carb loading. And then I kind of went away from carb loading when the paleo thing came about during the early days of CrossFit, and I thought, oh yeah, just lean meats and vegetables and some starches, no sugar. And then at the end of the day, that wasn't probably the most ideal way to fuel for performance sport. Like when you want work capacity done, it's you got to carb up. If you really want to see peak performance, you've really got to get into the carbs. And that's plain and simple. It's just biology. Yeah, you can adapt. You can adapt to working well on fats, but are you going to be as good? You'd probably be better working with carbohydrates depending on your event, right? There's not many performance-based events that I see you doing super, super well on just trying to be fat adapted or fasted. It's all about getting in the energy to output hard. So I've come full circle and now I'm back on the oats and maple train. And that's what I've done in the last few years of CrossFit. I wish I actually found it earlier. I would have been better earlier in my career if I'd stuck to what my dad was teaching me when I was 8 years old and really fueling and carbing up. Like back in the day, you hear in the 80s and 90s and 70s about carb loading before an Ironman event. And I really, truly believe that we should have just continued that for a bit longer. And I get that's not the ultimate way to fuel for longevity. They're two different things. There's fueling for performance and fueling for longevity. And I'd eat two different ways for both. And majority of the time, I'm trying to fuel for longevity. When I'm getting close to races or I'm getting in a tough training block or I'm preparing for a Hyrox race, which is very glycolytic, it's carbs as much as we can. But then if I wasn't doing that and I was just working day in, day out, keeping fit and moderately just being active 7 days a week, I'd probably fueling a little bit different. I'd probably taking a fasted day as well. I probably would not eat on a Sunday or something like that and spend some more time with a little bit less in my stomach just for other health benefits. But when it comes to sports performance, carbohydrates to the max, leading into competition, usually aiming for around 10 to 12 grams of protein per kilo of lean body mass for 48 hours leading into comp. A meal typically 3 to 4 hours prior to the throwdown. You want to be sucking on hydration in that period, sodium, of course, potassium and magnesium, definitely. Again, just a standard electrolyte blend. And then typically 7 days leading into a hard race, I'd be doing a liter of beetroot juice as well. And prior to that, 6 weeks out, you'd starting to load your beta alanine. And then day of race, I would be doing bicarb soda 90 minutes before, 60 minutes before, 30 minutes before, and making sure that you're topped up and you've got gels for your event, making sure you've got some quick carbohydrates ready to rock and roll, because when you're in the thick of your races, you need carbohydrates. And typically my go-to is just pure maple syrup. I don't really love most of the gels on the market. There's one that I quite like. BPN do a good one. But during races, yeah, maple. And there's a cool company out there actually that do a really good maple syrup in a sachet, which is great because that's what I've always loved.
Yeah, wonderful. Oh man, just hearing you like talk about that type of fueling, and literally that's what I try to get through and the athletes I work with. So yeah, there's a lot of like soccer players that I work with. They'll come to me and they'll be trying to play a match on 1,800 calories or 2,000 calories or something like that. And we're looking at their BMR and that's what you need now, like before we even actually go and play. So once I start fueling up a bit, and usually like everyone's trying to be low carb, but once we start fueling up a bit with the carbs, like I literally get a text and they're like, mate, cannot believe
Different.
like how much energy I have. Like I feel so much better.
It's night and day. It's night and day.
Yeah. And like you said, like our bodies literally run on glucose, like it loves it. So even when we talk about protein, it actually has to break the protein down and then convert it to glucose to use it as energy. So
And it's an energy expenditure to do that process too. So we need to look at what that also takes for our body to make that happen. And you're fighting for that. And you want to lift as many handbrakes off as you can on the way. You don't want to be like pulling that up all the way through. You want to be trying to make it as easy as possible to focus on what you do best, which is putting your skills and your endurance to the test, especially if you're playing soccer and you're out there playing, it's a game, 2 45-minute halves, man, and you're running mega amounts. The amount of carbohydrates you'd need for that is equivalent to what you'd be doing for Hyrox. The fueling strategy would be very similar, but I would be looking at all of those parameters in and around that. What's going to help vasodilate, but not too much, because you don't want to blow your legs up with too much vasodilation. You don't want a huge pump formula. You don't want to be overdoing caffeine. A little bit is great for sure, but you want to be making sure that you're super carbed up, super hydrated, and hydration, not just water, a good combination of water and salts. And then I guess what works best for your stomach. If you like gels, great. If you like a bit of carb in your drink, great. If you like honey or you like maple, great. Or if you want to blend up a really good strategy as well is if you're sick of eating your food, cook a cup of rice, cook it until it's nice and ready to rock and roll, and chuck it in a blender with some berries and with some protein powder, and you've got yourself a nice little drink there with loaded full of carbohydrates and super dense, full of carbs and stuff that you need for race day. That's a good way to get it in, just smoothie everything.
Yeah, thanks for sharing those tips because a lot of players I deal with, because gels are really pushed hard in soccer and football at the moment. And a lot of players I deal with, it doesn't sit too well with them. And then they're not fans of it. They're not fans of the taste. So
Yeah.
sometimes we go with a sports drink at the same time and they use that to try and break it down a little bit as well. But
Yeah. Another good one I quite like, and this is what I would actually be doing in a combination with the maple sachets, is dates are amazing, especially if you're used to dates and you can handle the fiber. It's a great way to carb up. I actually used that in my last marathon, and I just loaded pockets full of dates. I think I had maybe 18 to 20 dates with me in my pockets, like 9 or 10 in each pocket, and I just ate on them like every couple of Ks. It was great.
yeah, no. All right. So as a vegan athlete, what were the challenges with your nutrition early on and how do you just navigate them?
Yeah, so typically most people will run into the where do you get your protein from? I was never one of those ones to struggle with any part of transitioning into a plant-based diet, luckily enough. I knew that the very black and white, I don't know what you call it. I can't even think of the personality type that it is, but I'm just like, oh, well, you know, chicken's now tempeh and beef is now tofu and fish is now black beans and pork is now lentils. And that was very simple for me. And I was always doing supplements like protein powders and creatine and beta alanine and stuff prior. So I was aware of the main staples that were good. I didn't find bicarb until later, or beetroot for that matter. But it was a very simple and easy process to sub out the main typical lean meats for the more protein-rich plants that were there. You can't really compare quinoa to tempeh. I see a lot of nutritionists or dietitians comparing chicken to quinoa, and I'm just like, why are you choosing one of the lower end of the spectrum plant? Every plant's got all the essential amino acids that you need regardless, right? They've all got them. But the abundance in, say, quinoa, it's moderate, but it's not great. It's not the best. It's not the worst. Whereas I would prefer to look at something like a non-GMO organic tempeh. Like that's a higher amount right there. And then also start looking at what do we actually need to support what we're looking for. And for me, it's sitting in the realm of 1.8 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of lean body mass or ideal body weight. If you're 120 kilos, but you know your ideal body weight's 90, that's where you would like to be, or that's what would suit you best for what you're looking for, whether it's sport or health, then I would situate that in and around the 90 kilo category. So then you're starting to fuel for the most ideal weight you should be. For me, I'm 88 kilos. It's probably a pretty good weight. I might drop a few kilos over the next year or two racing these Hyrox races, but I'm not opposed to it. It's no big deal. And I'm fueling for my 88 kilo frame. And that's pretty much it. And I just make sure I get close to those numbers. And again, it's not about perfection. It's about consistency. And if you get as close as you possibly can to the targets every day, the problem if you're only hitting 50% of those targets, but if you're getting within a 5% margin, like you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so what does sort of like a full training day look like for you, especially at the moment, because you're doing doubles at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah. So we're back to doing double days of training, which is, I never thought I would ever say I'm doing that again after the CrossFit Games. But yeah, we're back doing double days. And these double days, for instance, a morning session would be, would be at the track. And the other day, so yesterday's 2 days training ago, we did warm up 1600 meters. We did 4 by 10-minute thresholds. And that threshold was supposed to be sub 340 K. So you'll hold it for 10 minutes, rest 2 minutes, repeat, 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 4 rounds. So 4 sets of 10 minutes holding that threshold pace. And that threshold is based off a 10K run time. So that's how we establish threshold. That would be session 1. And we would go pretty hard on that session. You fuel up no matter what. If it's a matter of doing the session unfueled or doing the session later, you do the session later and you do it fueled. Otherwise, you're not hitting your times. Everything's hard. So you do that. Then we take a bit of a break. We'd probably go back to second session because then I would go straight into work for the next handful of hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. I would go into session 2, which would probably kick off around 2:00. And then we would bust out some strength. It might be some box squats. So focusing on that upper pressing and weight bearing movement for the sled pushes. Then we might jump into a bit of an EMOM with sled pushes, sled pulls. Then we'd jump into part C, which would be some type of metcon, whether it's like a 20-minute EMOM, building volume across wall balls, lunges, could be some erg threshold work. A lot of days now that we have thresholds, they're usually double days of threshold. So it might be run threshold in the morning, run and then erg thresholds in the evening. And then after that, we might go into some accessories. So it could be like a push-pull accessory. It might be a 10-minute EMOM of 8 pull-up, 8 ring dip, or something like that on the minute, every minute for 10 minutes. Then from there, we might finish off with a bit of core, or we might finish off with another conditioning piece of some sort, or a shorter conditioning piece, maybe a bit of a blowout for 4 or 5 minutes, just getting some power, and then finish off with a bit of core. So that session might start at 2 o'clock and might wrap up around 4:15. So it's probably about an hour and probably a 70-minute session in the morning of running base or running bias, and then afternoon sessions, about a couple of hours. So still a little bit less, sorry, than what I was doing getting peak ready for CrossFit Games, but this also suits my schedule a little bit better too. So about 3 hours a day split into an hour and a 2-hour session.
Yeah. And
Most days.
then recovery wise, what are you putting in place, or what is your belief is a must do in recovery?
The number one thing for recovery is sleep. If you're underperforming in sleep and you're under prioritizing sleep, you're doing yourself a huge disservice first and foremost. So if you're honing sleep, you're doing a great job. That's first priority. Sleep is great, and for a multitude of reasons. And then second to that, to make recovery work well for you, you have to be on point with your nutrition. And I'm always protein centric. So protein first, make sure you're getting close to your protein goals. That's a secondary point of recovery. Trying to get carbohydrates in within the first hour to 90 minutes of that session finishing, because I find that if you don't get those carbs in, the next session's rough, the next day is rough. So carbs first as well thereafter. And then in terms of recovery protocols, my number one, I love the sauna. And I love the sauna for a few reasons. I like it in terms of helping build cardiovascular strength, so aerobic capacity. I like it for heat adaptation, especially going from our winter into American summer. So that's good for heat adaptation. It's also good for building more red blood cells. So you get a really good heat shock response from it. It's also a time to unplug. So it's a time to wind down. You're not connected to your phone. You've got a bit of peace. So a bit of mental relief too. So I think the sauna is fantastic. You can overdo it for sure. It's not a who stays in longer is the winner. It's when you start getting restless in the sauna, you're pretty much done. It could be 12 minutes. It could be half an hour. But it's put in place that everyone is slightly different, and you're not going to give a 5K a week runner a marathon. So you don't need to give them the same protocol as someone who's very heat adapted. So that's one. I love the recovery boots when I can get them on. I love a good massage. Massage is probably the best thing I could recommend. So if you're doing sauna and massage, you're ahead of the game already.
Yeah, excellent. What about cold plunges?
Oh, I love cold plunges, but I'm lucky enough. I live about 300 meters from the beach. So there's my cold plunge out there, and whatever temperature is good, it's good. Like I live on the Gold Coast, so it's quite warm in the water, but it is a shock to the system regardless. No matter really the time of year, it's typically a shock. Or maybe a couple of months that it's not so much of a shock, but yeah, I love cold plunges. I think they're great. I think they definitely have their place. I think they're better suited prior to training rather than post training. So if you're going to do an early session, if you can get in a cold plunge earlier, that's great. But if it's impacting your sleep, then no. Whereas afternoon session, yeah, if you're going to go hit a 2 p.m. session, 3 p.m. session, 4 p.m. session, jump in a cold plunge prior to the session. And yeah, I think that's a better advantage than jumping in after a session, which could blunt some of the effects that you're looking for from that session.
Yeah,
And
excellent.
also, it also takes longer for your body to reach temperatures that start to affect your performance too. So if you can bring down that core body temperature, you last a little bit longer until you get to that higher core temperature that starts to slow you down. So there's that little advantage as well.
Yeah, that's right. So you basically bringing your core temperature down, because people that are sitting higher up and then they go and compete in the same sort of environmental conditions, they're going to quickly get to that core temperature that affects your performance, isn't it?
Exactly. So let's say you're getting ready for like Murph or a football game, and you can be even like, just a smidge lower than somebody else to start. It might take you just a little bit longer to get to those thresholds when your temperature rises in the midst of a hard workout or a hard game or footy. And you're not going to cool yourself down so much that, you're going to start pulling hammies and stuff. And it's not that type of effect. As long as you warm up, like prime your body well, rather than warm up. It's about priming and getting things ready to do the work rather than heating them up per se.
All right. So what's your biggest advice or piece of advice for young athletes trying to fuel for performance and growth?
So for young people, I think it's really important to understand that when you're in and around race day and training, if you underfuel, especially for people that are looking for top tier performance, you could lead yourself into chronic illness. And I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of kids that hammer the pull, hammer their training, hammer everything really hard and forget about nutrition, you might be digging yourself a hole that you don't realize you're digging. And you are very flexible and robust, and you can bounce back from a lot of things. That you're almost like a really pliable piece of putty that can just withstand a lot of impact. But it doesn't stop you from falling sick, and it doesn't stop you from getting things like Epstein-Barr, and it doesn't stop you from getting the flu, and it doesn't stop you from getting these colds. And now remember, the key factor here is that the athletes that can train year round on an ongoing basis tend to be the athletes that rise to the top and stay at the top. Not only because they get more sessions in, but they become more robust and they figure out strategies that keep them on the track. And athletes on the track, or athletes on the pitch, or athletes in the pool on a year-round basis that do that tend to rise to the top. So if you're looking for optimal performance, you want to make sure you're a year-round trainer and you can handle it. And therefore, you need to make sure you're fueling well. Now, I would always recommend you seek out the advice of a professional who knows the ins and outs of nutrition and dietetics, can create a plan for you that suits what is necessary for you as a growing athlete. And I remember hearing this from one of my coaches back in the day. He said to me, I remember like, tell me about protein powder. Tell me about protein powder. I want to know more about protein powder. He's like, Matt, nutrition first, supplements second. And I was like, no, I want to know about the protein powder. But remember, like I'm telling you, this is coming from someone who asked that question when I was 14 years old. The food that you put in will have the greatest impact on your performance day in, day out. The food comes first. Eat a well-rounded, lots of color on your plate, and hit your macros. Hit your macros first and foremost, then cover the micronutrient basics. And if you're eating a well-varied diet in terms of color, and there's lots of color throughout, whether it's berries and fermented foods like sauerkraut and kimchi and yogurts of good quality yogurts, and you're getting in a plethora of color, some fermented foods, you're hitting your macronutrients to the degree that you need to support the sport you're doing, you're on point. Then add the supplements in on top as an insurance policy on all those things, or to make your day-to-day easier. The supplements are there. Some supplements are fantastic for helping boost that performance side of things and getting the most out of the Ferrari that you're trying to create, but it's not the first priority. The food and nutrition is the first priority, and the supplements are the icing on the cake, the bonus that you have. And again, the insurance policy on the already good diet.
Love that. That was brilliant and perfectly put. And that's something like I've been talking about with a lot of like the nutritionists at some of the EPL clubs as well. Like they're academy players. Basically, like they explain to them that their fueling is how much volume that they're doing or the training intensities and stuff like that. But when we work it out and sort of the amount of time that they spend, you've got a youth player who will wake up in the morning, they might do a bit of play, they might have some preschool activities or off or whatever. They'll go to school, play chasey, Red Rover, might have PE sessions, finish school, then after school, they might be playing with their friends, OSH again, and then they go to a training session. When we were looking at those numbers, there's 6 hours of active movement there versus an elite EPL player who are doing 2 hours.
Yeah.
And they're not growing. Like they're trying to grow, but not at the rate some of these kids are growing. So yeah, your advice is, I could not like stress that more to parents is like their children, if they're going to the fridge and they're always going to the fridge or they're always hungry, but they're super active, like they need fuel.
Let them eat. Let them eat.
Let 'em
Number
eat.
one, let them sleep. Those are the two things. Let them eat, let them sleep. Always. Because I think if you were to restrict their food to the point, like you can have a clean diet, right? So you can have a clean diet, but you might be chronically under eating calories. You're going to wind up with a serious issue. I would almost rather someone eat a bit dirtier and eat enough calories than eat super clean and not eat enough calories. Because if you're constantly underfueled, you'll be sick, you'll be tired, you'll be lethargic. You're not getting anything out of school. You're too emotional. You make poor decisions. Like it's a plethora of problems if you're not getting enough calories in. So ideally you're getting enough calories in with good quality whole food where possible. I completely understand there's some processed food that comes into it when you're really needing the extra calories, and I do the same, have to do it, because you're not going to typically get this day and age. You're not going to get everything from Whole Foods, and you're quite lucky if you've got someone sitting there cooking for you all the time. That's great. But for 99% of us, that's not the case. Whole food where possible, as clean as possible, but you must get some processed foods in if you want to maximize time and live in this day and age. But yes, calories in is a key factor, and having someone create the plan of macros that suit the person the best, that's also going to be a key element. And again, you don't have to be perfect for this to work. Like, the whole point is for it to work. And perfection isn't what we're looking for. We're looking for consistency, because consistency across the board is what trumps everything. Consistency and focus.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so for parents of junior athletes, and say they're stepping out and they're planning on doing, their child's doing CrossFit or Hyrox or marathons or something like that, how could they be the role, and how could they support their child in competing the best they can, or the growth and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think I was lucky in the respect that I had the support of my parents, but they were never forceful. It was never like, you must do this. I never once had that. My friends who did have that, they're not playing sport anymore. And I'm still loving sport. I'm 34 years old. I'm still loving sport as much as I did when I was a teenager. And I never had the dad or the mom that said, you will go to that 5 a.m. session and you will do it because that's what you've committed to doing. It was always like, I will help you if you would like to do it. If you want to go to a high performance squad, I'll drive you there. If you want to go and play touch football on Wednesday nights and play rugby league Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and union on Saturdays or Sundays and league on Saturdays, I'll drive you there. I'll be there as support base. I remember asking my dad this one question, and this can put it in maybe a bit of perspective. I remember I was running Little Athletics and I never trained. I only did Sundays at Little Athletics. That was my day to go and compete. And I didn't train during the week. It was a normal kid, played video games and went outside, rode my bike, would make jumps with the shovels and all that type of stuff. But I never trained until I was maybe 13 years old or 12 years old. But I remember my dad saying to me, I remember I got a silver medal in the shot put and I wanted gold so bad. I got a silver medal, didn't win. And he goes, imagine if you trained. And I was like, trained? Is that what Sunday is? He goes, yeah, it's like what you do on Sunday at Little Athletics, but you did it more than one day a week. And I was like, interesting. This training thing seems cool. Is that going to help me get a gold medal? And he's like, yeah, for sure. So I said, can you make me train? My reply was, can you make me train? And he said, no. Because if you want to train, you'll go do it yourself. But I will go and mark out your 200 meters on the street. I'll mark out your 400 meters so you know how far you're running, and I'll get you a watch so you can time it. And that was pretty much how he went about most things. He got me a shot put. If I asked for a shot put, he got me a little high jump testing thing. He put up a fishing rod in the backyard with a little piece of string attached to it. And every time I could tap it 3 times in a row, I'd wind it up a little bit so I could jump a little bit higher. So he just helped me make these cool, fun games to help me train, but he never made me train. He never forced me to do it. If I wanted to do it, I did it. If I didn't want to do it, he didn't make me.
Yeah. So I've heard you speak about your dad a few times, and I'm fortunate enough to have met Mark. And like, I remember him being at Seoul and making the shakes and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Delivering on the silver platter. Yeah.
yeah. But just hearing about like that, like the supportive parent, how he helped guide your journey, but it was never forced, but he was always there to mark out the lines and stuff like that. It's really, yeah, it's amazing. It's really cool to hear. Because I suppose, like, you hear a lot of other parents, like they can be like deadbeat parents or the abusive parent that tries to force their kids to become a superstar. But yeah, it's nice to hear that kind of side, or that kind of parent that delivers it that way. And I think a lot of people should aspire to be very similar.
I think he did a very good job of saying what was, and not too much. He left enough for you to go and think for yourself. He never really gave the answer, but he always taught good traits that I think were instilled from a young age. I remember this one other time, I was racing a kid who was younger than me in a race. And at the time, in my age category, I'd win every race at the local Malunga Downs Little Athletics meets. I would win all my races in my age category. Then a younger kid from a division below me said, do you want to race? And I said, yeah, I've got this kid. I'm older than him now. I'm going to smoke him. And I remember I was probably 9 or 10 at the time, probably 10 years old. And we took off on 70 meters. And within about 20 meters, he was already well ahead of me. We got to about the halfway mark, 35 meters in, and he was already 8 meters in front. And I was like, what is going on? And I stopped halfway through this race after Little Athletics had finished. This was just like an after hours, you want to quickly race? Like, you won yours, I won mine. And I remember saying to Dad, I'm going to go race this kid. And he's like, cool, let's go do it. And so he went over and he was timing us, and I stopped halfway through. And this kid finished the race. He won. I stopped halfway and I didn't think anything of it. I had no idea what I'd just done, but so disrespectful. You never just pull out during a race because you're losing. And I
Yeah.
remember walking to Dad, and he was just like, why'd you stop? And I was just like, oh, he was winning anyway. And I was frustrated that I lost. I was frustrated that I was losing, and I just pulled the pin. And he goes, never do that ever again. If you're going to commit to the race, you finish it. And he was so disappointed. I didn't know why he was so mad. But yeah, I was like, okay, cool. That was a really cool lesson that I learned, that, hey, if you're getting towed up, you deal with it. You take that on the chin and you say, congratulations, well done. That was another thing that I think helped me be a better athlete, knowing that you can be great at what you do, but you're not always going to win. And you need to take that in your stride, because if you expect to win everything every time, yeah, go for the win every time. Sure. Always go for the win. But if you do happen to get pipped, or someone is just better than you on the day, you need to be able to bounce back from that and go, okay, cool. How can I be better? How can I make myself better tomorrow? How can I make myself better for the next race? That's what your next plan is.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really cool story. I love that. I love that your dad setting that example and just teaching you that way, and that morals that he tried to put into you. Yeah.
Good
All right.
sportsmanship.
Okay. So let's talk a bit about Phyba. Among all the other things James does, he's also a business owner.
Yeah. I have a supplement brand that I created a few years ago, and it's called Phyba. Essentially, it's a plant-based supplement company, and our goal is to build the best plant-based protein in the world. Second to that, we want to build a movement that inspires people to train and get after their next bucket list item, or their next race, or their next session. Our aim is to create a suite of products, not only the plant protein that we believe is the best quality in terms of taste, texture, amino acid profile, and gut healthy microbiome digestion, but also create a suite of products that help the athlete be at their absolute best for any race circumstance. So that means building out electrolytes, having good quality creatine and beta alanine, and things that I use and have used in the past in my career to help athletes be at optimal performance, but also catering for people that care about their longevity. The whole point here is to not create products that get you through the next session or the next race and just to scrape through, but to get you through the next 100 races and get you to the point where you can still surf if you so choose when you're 70 years old. I see a lot of products that go out there, they're copy and paste of the next thing. And we wanted to create something different. We wanted to make something that was clean, it was pure, it was whole food based, but it had a really gut centric approach. So every product we have has some type of gut specific approach, whether it's a probiotic or a prebiotic or a polyphenol or a polysaccharide or a ferment that has some postbiotics inside, something that helps to encourage the gut microbiome to be stronger in its own capacity. And that's a little bit, again, consistency, a daily dose along the way throughout the day, just a touch point of something that's going to emphasize health and wellness inside the gut. But then each product has its own bias: protein, muscle recovery, muscle building. Then you've got the Flora-Fuel, which is a fiber blend, which is specifically gut tonic centric. Then you've got like the Super Browns, which is more like a wellness immunity blend that helps to top you up on the things that you might be missing out on a already good diet. And then other things that we're looking at transitioning into bringing out soon, things that'll help with airway opening, to help with better breath control, sleep tonics to help wind you down if you're feeling a little bit overdone and overcooked. And as an athlete, easy to do. Like, you can overcook yourself and you'll be staring at the ceiling for half the night because your legs are jittery and they won't calm down. And you've done a late session and you might be on the pitch at 9 p.m. and you just can't wind down. This is something that'll help you wind down into a nice, deep, restful sleep. But again, every aspect has some type of gut specific target. So for our nighttime tincture that's coming out soon, it has some probiotics that specifically work on GABA receptors to help wind down and activate GABA. And then our AM pick me up is a nice calming pick me up that gets you vibrant and focused and alert without giving you too much caffeine. So it's our whole point of Phyba is to build the healthiest products to help sports performance, but also hits the gut microbiome and then extends out to longevity.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I definitely know that a lot of players that I work with and talk to that they'd get a lot of benefits out of what you guys are putting together. And all the products are vegan products as well, aren't they?
They are, yeah. So we don't, that's one of our, I guess, our code of ethics that we keep everything plant-based. And I guess why wouldn't I? That's how I live my life. And I wanted to embody how I've treated my career. And after becoming completely plant-based, I haven't had any meat or animal products since 2019. I just wanted to make sure that the things that I was creating sit well with me and for people who do prefer or would like to even cut down on how much animal products they have. And I'm not saying for everyone going plant-based is the secret or the magic pill. It doesn't work for everyone's lifestyle. I think it can work in most circumstances, but I'm not out here at all telling people that's the way you have to live. I definitely am not going to scream that from the rooftops, but I would say that a larger the more variety of plant foods you can get in per week, only shown to be a positive on gut health and longevity. That's all. Like, if you'd prefer to get most of your protein from meat, that's okay. Maybe you could look at just using a plant-based protein instead of a whey protein. Maybe it sits better on the stomach. Maybe it keeps you fuller for longer. Maybe there are some other nutrients inside that just might help you. Or maybe you can rotate. Maybe you can take your whey protein after training, and on the second session for the day, you take a plant protein. Again, I think variety is key. And the more variety we have, the better health outcomes there are. And it's also better for digestion, because what I think most people look at when you think of health, you just think, oh, is my immune system good? Am I falling sick regularly? How often do you get sick? If you're very few and far between, that's great. You've probably got a strong immune system, which tells me you've got a strong gut microbiome. And what we found is that the more variety of gut microbes we have sitting and residing within the gut, creating short chain fatty acids, enzymes, vitamins, amino acids, the better we feel day to day. If we only fuel with just a certain couple of things on a daily basis, or things that don't work well with the gut microbiome, then we're only fighting against, again, pulling up a handbrake and fighting against it. So the idea is to have a really wide variety of plants that feed a wide variety of gut microbes, so probiotics, to get as many cool postbiotic compounds as we can, filtering through the system, doing what they do, impacting our epigenetic expression, impacting inflammation, impacting the gut lining, impacting immune system function, impacting hormone balance, impacting sleep. All these things, I think they all come from a gut axis in some way. And if we can help to make that more optimal, again, it's like an ecosystem. It's like a rainforest. The more, the better. The more, the better. And the more wide variety, the better.
Yeah, fantastic. So where can players listening to this, or parents, where can they sort of learn more, and what's sort of like a good starter product for someone new to vegan products?
Vegan stuff. Yep, sure. So they could definitely jump on to either the Phyba Performance podcast, but I would say a really good way to just have a good gander and read is the blog on the Phyba website. So phyba.com.au. If they go there and just go into the blog, it's up the top. You can filter through all the blogs that we've put together, myself and Zavs, and you can have a read about plant protein. You can take a read about prebiotics, postbiotics. You can have a read about products in particular. You can also read about foods that I recommend, herbs that I recommend, a staple of 10 to 12 foods that I think should be in everybody's diet because they have such great health outcomes, like garlic and ginger and olive oil and avocados and mushrooms and fermented foods. And then if there's one product that I would recommend that everybody, I think for any athlete, if you struggle, again, I'm protein centric. So if you struggle to hit protein requirements, a good quality clean plant protein that has a great amino acid profile is going to be key. Start off with a plant protein. It's my pick of the litter. Luckily enough, our plant protein is comparable to whey in terms of amino acid profile. It's 76% per scoop dry weight. So if you look at, say, gold standard whey, 78% branched chain amino acid profile is around about 5 grams, or 5%, should I say. And then ours is 76 and 3.5. So it's the difference between half a teaspoon of extra branched chain aminos. If you just do 1 scoop and a touch, you're on point. And not only that, but there's only 7 ingredients. So it's super clean. There's nothing in there that's going to upset the stomach, and it's good for longevity. So I'd start there.
Sounds like a really good start.
Actually, one other thing. I'm
Oh,
going to say one other product that I like, and you don't even have to get it from us. So you can get it from anywhere you like. Creatine. I would recommend creatine for everyone on any age. And I just think it's magic. It's just magic for brain function, gut function. And if the parents out there are listening, it's not going to make your child crazy. It's not a steroid. It's nothing like that. It's something that we have in our bodies all the time. They sit saturated in the muscle and we create it on a regular basis, but it just tops you up and it saturates them just a little bit more. It just allows you to build muscle a little bit better and more effectively. It allows you to think a little bit clearer, especially if you're undersleeping on a regular basis. It's a really good way to mitigate those properties. It's also good for short-term memory. It's good for aging population. It's good for so many different things. So yeah, another thing would be just protein and creatine, like the great start.
Yeah. And for soccer players, for sort of any actions that are like take less than 8 seconds. So those super explosive actions, especially like kicking a ball, jumping, lunging in for a tackle, upping your creatine phosphate system and having like extra fuel sitting there can just only go a long way to your performance and the outcome of matches.
Spot on, spot on.
All right. So yeah, I've got some fun get to know James questions.
Great, hit me.
Cool. All right. So what's your sort of guilty pleasure meal?
Oh, guilty pleasure meal. Oh, definitely like a plant-based burger. I can definitely do a grilled Impossible burger, or what they've actually changed it now. It's not Impossible anymore. It's actually, I think they use Beyond now, but it's a grilled Beyond burger or something like that. Yeah, that's a guilty pleasure that I partake in semi-regularly.
Yep. Very good. What's one weird habit or ritual you have before training or competition?
Ooh, one weird habit or ritual. So before every event, and it's just, I don't know, it's just must be nervous energy. But before every event, I do this really weird swaying action with my feet. I'll step side to side and I'll tap my feet against each other. But it's just something that I've actually noticed watching myself back in some footage. And it's like, what am I doing with my feet? But I have a weird reaction to being out there. And I get nervous before any event. Doesn't matter what it is. You could be competing at the CrossFit Games in a huge event, or you could be competing at a local throwdown or just a local running race, and I'll still do the same thing. But that's just one thing. I don't have any, what are they called? Like superstitions. If I do start to feel like that I've got a superstition going, and I used to feel about this when I was playing football, I could only put my mouth guard on one side. I couldn't put it on the right side. It had to be on the left side. It was always tucked on the left.
Yeah.
And eventually I got to the point, it was like, I'm not living by superstitions anymore. I'm going to start doing the opposite of what I think is the superstition just to see what happens. And I had to do away with superstitions. Otherwise, it'd occupy my mind too much.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. So who would you love to race, lift, or train with, dead or alive?
Ooh, great question. Ooh, honestly, I would love to go and lift in prime form. I would love to go and lift with Arnold Schwarzenegger for sure. Just go
Yes.
back in the day, Muscle Beach, LA. I would love to just go hit a session with him. That'd be sick.
How good would it be if you could just go back in time to like these monumental moments or to go with people like that and just experience like a session with them or just a bit of time or Albert Einstein or something, just pick their brain for a little bit and
It'd be mega. But yeah, honestly, 100%. It'd be Arnie and it'd be back on the day in Muscle Beach for sure.
yeah, nice. If you weren't an athlete, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't an athlete,
Adam?
yeah, still at Madam serving drinks. Yeah, absolutely. Far out. Mate, I loved those days. I loved those days serving drinks, working behind the bar, topless waiting. Oh my God. Great days, that's for sure.
I remember you coming out like afterwards or it might have been before or whatever and you'd be so stoked and just tell about the night.
That's wild, eh? Yeah, that was good times, far out. Haven't thought about that in ages, but hey, it was, as a 19-year-old, it was a great way to earn some extra cash on a Saturday night and not be going out, keep me in check. But if I had to say anything aside from being an athlete, I'd probably still be in the fitness space somehow, but maybe owning, say, more gyms or maybe something to do being a vet, maybe a vet or a zookeeper or maybe marine biology or something like that. I always liked the ocean and I've always enjoyed being a part of it. But if not that, if I had to choose like a suit job or like a government job, either like a firefighter or maybe even like a real estate agent. I love talking to people. I love architecture. I love housing. So yeah, maybe something like that too.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so you're hosting a dinner party with 3 people. Who's coming and what are you serving?
Ooh, good question. If I'm inviting anyone, it would have to be, I would love to sit down with someone. I would love to sit down with Roger Federer. I think he'd be a good one. I would love to sit down with, these are all sports people, but I'd love to sit down and I've heard him talk in person before, but I'd love to sit down and listen to more. And not to say that I would get much more information than I already got, but it'd just be cool to share the room, is Michael Phelps. And then I would love to sit down and
His diet was crazy.
yeah,
Y-
mental. And the training volume and the consistency was insane.
Yeah. We looked
Uh,
into a little bit of what he was doing in like 20 kilometers a day in the pool. He was eating
yeah.
between 8 to 10,000 calories a day.
Yeah. It's crazy how the gut could handle it. But yeah, it's again, this is breaking myths and breaking norms from what people thought was possible. And I love that. So he would probably be another one. But these are all guys that are just inspiring and have just done so well in the sport that they've been a part of. I'd chuck Arnie in that mix too. Like I listened to his story and he was big inspiration back in the day for just like lifting weights. So I'd love to sit down with him, like again, get them all into their prime years and have them all sit down and have chin wags about it, or at the end of their prime years. So they've got all the experience to talk about and just shoot it. And if I was going to be serving anything, obviously it's going to be plant-based. So I'd probably be doing like got to try and appease everyone here. You know, they're all athletes, so they all understand eating plain is always good. So it could just be tempeh and rice on a plate, and keep it really simple. Maybe a bit of watercress on top to give some green. And then we'd probably finish off with some coconut yogurt or something like that, or coconut ice cream. That'd be us done. But to be honest, I wouldn't go too elaborate because all of those guys are probably well aware that basic is best and they probably wouldn't be too fussed.
There you go. Very good. All right. I've got 2 questions left. So what's one personal achievement you're proud of outside of sport?
Well, I know we've been talking about this already, but I'm really proud of where Phyba's gotten to in the last 3 years. So we're about to hit our 3-year birthday, and I jumped into it not knowing how hard it was going to be to create a brand and to create a company. And I've done business in the past. I've done gyms before. I've done different e-com things, but never something as passionate as this. And I've been never fired up as much as I ever was. I never thought I'd be as fired up as competing at the CrossFit Games as I was about. I never thought I could feel the way I felt at the CrossFit Games ever again in anything else I did. But I feel that way every day waking up doing Phyba. Like when I wake up and think, how can we inspire someone to do their next run, their next training session? How can we create healthier products? It occupies my mind. Like, how can we make this bigger and better? And how can we impact more people? And how can we get these people all together one day to do a run and to have fun and to meet people and socialize and cross connect and network? How can we embrace that? And how can we build a movement? That fires me up. And I'm very proud of where it is, where it's going. I'm proud of the people that it's attracting. I'm proud of the products that we have on the shelf. I can stand by them, next to them, and give them to my family, give them to my mum and dad and be proud of them. I'm really proud of where Phyba's at, and I'm proud of how well it's gone.
Man, that's so good. And honestly, like, super proud of you as well. Not just the sporting front, which is extremely difficult to do what you do, but yeah, to create a business and something that you believe in. And I see it all the time. I see how hard you push it. And I tried most of your products as well because I wanted to get in and support, and I'll still do that. But yeah, it's super cool when you see a mate strive so hard for something and talk so passionately about it. And I see all the work you do and all the extra things and going to all the stores and the sampling and stuff like that takes so much effort. Yeah. Yeah. You should be proud of yourself.
Thank you. It's good fun. I like it. It's testing and it's hard, but again, so was sport. So was sport. If you tapped out because it was hard, every time it got hard, you'd never be the world champion, right? It has to get hard. And if it doesn't get hard and doesn't get testing, it doesn't make you second guess how much you can handle. If it doesn't make you second guess it, yeah, you might be in the wrong thing because it has to be like that. I find that it just has to be tough. And if you are doing those things and you are feeling those things, you're in the right place. It's not the wrong place. It may feel like the worst place in the world, but it's not the wrong place. It's exactly where you need to be.
Yeah. Nice. If your life was a documentary, what would the title be?
Oh, it'd probably be, and this is, I don't even know why I thought of this, but maybe it's I don't watch his stuff a lot, but maybe even just the James Newbury experience.
Okay.
Because
Yeah. Cool.
it's unique. It's unique. And it's not, I didn't even think of Joe Rogan until just then when I thought about that. But yeah, it's a unique life for sure. It's unique. It's fun. I love it. Yeah, it's an experience. It'd be definitely an experience to watch if you could turn it into a doco. It's pretty manic. It's like, it's all systems go. That's for sure.
Just put it to the floor.
Yeah, and just try and solve as many problems as you can throughout every day.
Yeah, that's the last question I have for you. But thank you for jumping on and sharing your journey and your experience, and all the best for the Hyrox Worlds.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And hey, if there's ever a chance to do episode 2, let me know.
I will. Yeah. So if followers want to keep an eye on you and what you're up to, and if they want to find Phyba and all the wonderful products or keep an eye on them on social, how do they do that?
So they could follow what we're doing over at Worlds next month at James Newbury. They could also follow Phyba at Phyba Performance, which is PHYBA Performance. And then, yeah, that's about it. And if they have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. It's just james@phyba.com.au and I can explain always on my email. So I'll always be able to help out.
Nice one. Cheers, mate. That's all for today, guys. You can follow The Football Nutritionist at Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and jump over to our website at www.thefootballnutritionist.com. Keep fueling for success and kicking those goals.